Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. I have MK as my producer again, but because I can't always see her, she'll be popping in and out to add some depth and some
Won't be weird.
personality.
Not weird.
It won't be weird at all. So, today I wanted to talk to you about the best friend of the quarantined cook, and that is beans and legumes. So, it's funny, a lot of stores have been totally selling out when it comes to beans, but not everybody knows what to do with them. We just all know it's shelf stable and it's something that is left in the store right now. But I personally, I love beans. I cook them all year, but there's such a large variety of beans. There's still a ton that I'm not familiar with either. And when I got to the store, I think it was about a week ago, the only thing that was left was the cranberry beans, which I still haven't used. But I know that they're not rare or obscure or anything, but I had just never tried them before. So that is what Google is for and YouTube is for. So I'm going to be experimenting with that. I just wanted to give you some best practices and some tips and tricks for cooking dry beans. So there's nothing wrong with canned beans. If you decide to use canned beans, you're just giving up a little bit of control over your end product. So I have some canned beans here because I am obsessed with chickpeas. I always have these, and this is something that you could put in combination with one of those quickly made box dinners to add some more protein or fiber so that you feel more full and satisfied. Beans are also good for keeping your blood sugar stable, which is why you typically don't feel hungry after you've eaten like a cup and a half of beans. The thing about cooking dry beans, though, is that you have the ability to control the flavor and the end texture when you do it yourself. As far as cost goes, the difference is negligible, like maybe 15 cents a serving versus 30 cents, something really, really small like that. Not even a serving. I guess a cup? I don't remember. When I looked it up, I just saw that it was like a 15-cent difference and I immediately forgot about the unit. So it's not that serious. The real reason why you'd want to go with one over the other would be controlling the flavor profile of your beans. So everybody knows that the normal thing to do when you're cooking, well, most people know, cooking dry beans is to soak them overnight. You soak them overnight to shorten their cooking time and also to make them a little bit easier to digest. But the truth of the matter is, if you don't want to soak them, you don't have to. If you're not accustomed to eating a lot of fiber, I would not recommend that. But if you are used to eating a lot of fiber or you live alone and you're not worried about the potential consequences of suddenly having a lot of fiber,
What are the
you should be
consequences of fiber exactly?
a lot of gas, a lot of bloating, and yeah, a lot of trips to the restroom. So, in a small amount, that's fine, but a lot, it's like that may help you out with the social distancing a little more than you were hoping for.
That's the
If
best
you're
answer I have ever heard.
I was thinking the other day that I wanted to show everybody the um, honey and garlic recipe, and my husband was like, no, people won't even want to be in the same room with someone who's had that." I said, this is the perfect time for that because we're supposed to be giving each other a little bit of space. You don't want to breathe all over your loved ones right now. If you don't want to soak the beans, you don't have to, but you have to be prepared for the cooking time to be considerably longer, like maybe 2 additional hours. So if you decided you want to soak them, but you didn't think about it until the day of, there is something called a quick soaking method. So you cover the beans, you leave about 2 inches of water on top of the beans. You bring them to a boil and then you let them soak for about an hour. And you should get about the same results as you would have had you remembered to put about 2 inches of water over the beans and let them soak overnight. And then if you don't have time for that and you don't want to deal with it perhaps being more difficult than usual to digest the beans, then you can go with a legume. So something like lentils. Lentils do not require soaking. They cook so quickly. And there's a large variety of lentils. So if you want for your bean to totally break down in a soup, then lentils would be a good option. Something like a red lentil or a pink lentil, they cook so quickly and they come apart. So I'm talking 10 minutes. If you were hoping to have the bean or the legume keep its shape for a salad or to be visible and whole in a soup, you're going to really want to pull back on the cooking time. And it honestly, with something like lentils, it may be as little as 8 minutes for the red lentils. But for these, it really depends. So you want to go with the directions that are on the back of the bag are going to be for that texture that's kind of in between. Still formed and cooked all the way through, but not mushy. If you want it a little more firm, then you're going to need to pull back from there. Another thing that a lot of people believe about beans is that if you add salt, it is going to make your beans hard. If you add salt at the start of the cooking process, that is not true. Usually, if you've had hard beans in the past, it could be because the beans you were eating were super, super old. If they like would never soften up and it didn't seem to matter how long you cooked them, the beans may have been old. Yes, they are shelf stable, but these are meant to be eaten like 1 to 2 years after they've made it to the shelf. So I don't know if this has happened to anyone else, but you would be surprised if you really pay attention how long you can lose something in your pantry. So when we moved from our first apartment together, me and my husband, to our first house, we found things in the pantry that were like 7 years old. And it's not like there was a ton of stuff in the pantry, and we are not messy people. But somehow things go, they sneak into the back of the pantry and they just disappear. And you may pull them out later, swearing you just bought them maybe 6 months ago, and they're like old as can be. So that could be what happened to your beans. It could also have been the water that you were cooking the beans in. So really hard water can affect how the beans turn out. So it's not the salt. I say all that to say it's not the salt. So adding the salt early on will actually shorten the cooking time of your beans and add flavor. So who doesn't want that? All of the canned beans, they already have sodium in there, so they've got a nice flavor. Another thing you can do at the start of the cooking process is add dry herbs that you want in your dish. And you can experiment with anything. In different cultures, there are different flavor profiles that are popular for different kinds of beans. So it's entirely up to you. I'm going to include a little list below this post of some seasonings that you may want to try, some, dry herb combinations. A simple thing that I like to do is just add some diced onion and some minced garlic and a bay leaf. And that's pretty much it. In between that and the salt, that's usually all the flavor I really want, but that's because I'll cook a large batch of beans and then use them lots of different ways throughout the week. So I want a very subtle flavor that will complement the different dishes it's going to go into. And you see, I also have my yellow rice here. So I think the smart thing to do is to look at different cultural groups and see how they have been using beans and rice, because everyone eats beans and rice and we all do it different ways. So one of my favorite dishes that I do with kidney beans is a coconut milk and white rice, peas and rice type of West Indian thing. But then again, most all of us are familiar with how Cuban people may combine black beans and rice. There's no way to go wrong, and there's like a ton of different options. So everything I'm mentioning is shelf stable and perfect for now. These are things that if you are already starting to run low on supplies, you can easily have these delivered to you. And when it comes to making the most of your leftovers, if you have like the tops of carrots, the end of celery, little bits and pieces of vegetables that would go into a stock if you felt like you had the energy to make a stock, you can throw that into a crock pot with your beans and you'll get an amazing um, amazing flavor. And yeah, this is not something that has to be exact. Beans are very forgiving. So you don't want to cook them to mush, but you will know that I'm cracking up at MK's notes. Okay, so what's the oldest thing you found in your pantry, MK?
Sorry, I forget you can't see the comments, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to try harder to get her to crack. The oldest, so we hired a nanny, and she was horrified the first time she went through the fridge. She like called me to come downstairs and was like, I can't use any of these things. They're all expired. She was really concerned that what is this, a science experiment? She meant well. She was so confused, and I was like, oh, honey, no, I'm just lazy. It's really bad. I put that in there so people walk in and they think that I like cook things. It was the food we eat in the freezer.
Well, it's funny because the good news is that a lot of the dates that you find on food are best by dates. They're not, will poison you the day after this date. Like with the beans, yeah, you don't want beans that refuse to get soft no matter how long you cook them. But eating that crunchy bean, it's not gonna, well, not a crunchy bean. Eating that hard bean is not like the end of the world, but not ideal. So that's good news. I remember once my mother, she gave me a bread maker and they came to visit me, delivered the bread maker, and my mom said, "Oh, I know I have not old." She said, "I have some yeast that I can bring with me so we don't have to worry about that ingredient because I had everything else." And didn't even cross my mind to ask how long has that been in there. So we put everything in there, we leave it to cook, we went to church, we come back, the house smells delicious, like freshly baked bread, and we open it and it's like this high. The loaf should have been this high. It was this high. And we wondered what went wrong. And the yeast, I swear to God, was like from the 90s. And this was not long ago, you guys. It was from the freaking 90s. And she's like, that's so weird. I thought I just bought that. And if you knew my mother, she's so clean. She is so tidy. If stuff can get away from my mom, then everybody has something old hiding out in the kitchen, in the pantry somewhere. Check your dates. This is a great time to really practice. First in, first out. When you buy another box of mac and cheese, don't put it in the front. It goes in the back. The new stuff goes in the back. The old stuff comes to the front so you can get it out. And if you realize, hey, you know what? I haven't baked any bread in like eons. And you look at your flour and everything, you find that it's like a couple years old, get rid of it. Like it's just, yeah, just check the dates, you guys. So also when you're purchasing these items, we're all doomed. When you're purchasing these items, be sure to check the dates as well because, people make mistakes. Humans work at the grocery store as well. So you don't want to be the sucker who buys the year-old product. So just check the date. And another thing I wanted to mention, and I was right there. MK's comments are throwing me off. What was the other thing?
I'm so sorry. I'll behave. I'm so sorry.
Well, you need to come on the screen so people know I'm not just being crazy. I'm like, there really was something.
They can see the comments too.
Okay, good. Oh, you know what? Okay, my only other thing was this is super crucial, and this is something that your littles can help you with. When you're dealing with dry beans, do be sure to sort and rinse them. So when you're sorting them, you're looking for like little leaves or rocks or whatever. Remember these beans, they did come from outside. These are a real food, a whole food, and you don't want to break a tooth on a rock and beans. Like that is a thing that could happen, just like you could break a tooth on a popcorn kernel. Yes, a little rock. Has that never happened to anyone else? It's amazing how much force you put into chewing when you're pretty confident that what you're about to bite into is edible and safe for human consumption. When you come down super hard on something that is inedible, like a rock or a popcorn kernel, it can do massive damage to your teeth. So that's why you're supposed to sort through them and rinse them. So I hope all of that is helpful. And I hope you guys will share what your favorite flavor combos are for your rice and beans. Well, not everybody's eating rice and beans. I eat a lot of rice and beans. Whatever you're doing with your beans, please share it with the rest of the group. This is such a useful thing to have in your quarantine kitchen. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
There's one thing that I used to do with beans. I went through, and I just think it's funny, and funny enough that it's worth sharing in this context. I went through a phase where I used to crock pot at the beginning of my marriage because I thought this is what married women do, and I don't want to be deficient in yet another way for this poor man who's hitching himself to me. And when I did, and we just had the babies, and I'm like, oh my God. So I'd make big crock pot of black bean soup. And that's the way I did it. It's almost as versatile as rice and beans that you described. Cause I'm like, oh my gosh, I could put meat in it and then it's chili. And then I can pour it over rice and beans. I can put it in tacos. I can do all kinds of things with it. And then I realized that you can't actually leave it in the crock pot warm for more than a couple days. And then that was over. My crock pot phase was exactly 3 days long.
Well, had you not done that, I love that idea of using it all those different ways, though. I mean, cooking's definitely not for everybody. Like, I hope no one is jumping through any crazy hoops right now. I mean, you got to eat something, but you could just as easily use canned beans, and you can add fresh herb. Well, right now, not so much. You could add some dry herbs on top and like close your eyes and think about how it would have tasted had it been cooked, there in your kitchen.
Well, that was the whole thing that I explained when we got started, right? That women always have the pressure, the onus is on us to do the emotional labor, and that it's supposed to be a healthy home cooked meal, and people are supposed to have time to meal plan and stuff. And most of us don't, and now we can't get groceries delivered. So that means I got to plan it, get my list, run to the grocery store, have my plan A, my plan B, my plan C, my plan D, get what I can, come home, and then figure out what to do with that. That's a lot of pressure. It's something I already admit that I'm not good at. So like ideas like this of how to take something simple and make it versatile, like a big pot of black beans could theoretically get you through at least 2 meals a day for 3 or 4 days, the way that you just described it. They are quite versatile. And so it's breaking it down to the least common denominator and having that around as a template to start with. And let's see where you can go. Would love to hear about the most interesting thing you've done more than a couple days in a row with the black beans or the beans and rice, whatever it is that you choose to do. Maybe it's red lentils. Let us know, share it here. And maybe, just maybe, we'll bring you on screen to be better behaved than I am talking to Dalia, because it's just too fun.
I think that was perfect. Everything's perfect. You're pretty handy with these comments.
I'm having fun with it. I figured out if I text it from my BlackBerry and have this open on my iPad, then I can make it come from different places and populate here.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yay. Anyway, yay for toys and yay for beans. They're good for your hearts and you want them nice and soft. You heard it here first. We love you. You're coached. You're loved. Let's keep winning at nutrition.